Zoom recording. And welcome everyone to Parsha Vayakhel, right? This is, I think, the last of the. This is the last one before. This is the end, right? Oh no, we have one more. Yeah, we have one more. We have yes. So this is the penultimate Parsha of Exodus, of Shemot.
Oh, wait, the next, well, yeah, because of Exodus, yes, because the very last one is the one that Moses wrote after he died.
Yeah. Yes, where yes, those are the last 8 paragraphs. But right now we've got so we're on Vayakhel. So let's start the bracha. And we're gonna have 10 minutes for questions. You put some questions, whatever you guys want, in the chat, and we hope to get to them because I know that I have lots of questions, and then everybody else has lots of questions. So we want to get to the questions. So let's get started. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher barakavanu mikol hamim v'natan lanu et torato. Baruch atah Adonai notein haTorah. Thanks for giving us Torah. Amen. Wonderful. We have so many fantastic people here. Everybody's flooding in, and I see people like I want to give a shout out to Myron to say, hey, I haven't seen you in a long time, buddy, and wow. And if you guys have questions, or something, you can always unmute yourself. I'll be monitoring the chat too. And is there a way? I think there's a way to start AI chat. There we go. I think it's AI companion. No, not catch me up. Do you know how to do that, Channing? Or maybe I'll ask Leah how to do the summary.
I can start mine, but my AI gets kicked out.
Okay, how do you start it?
Oh, I just do. I just copy the.
No, like on Zoom. Like, how do you?
Yeah. Well, there's a button here. I just copy the invite link into it, and it starts.
Oh, I don't know how to. Okay, I thought that. I know that there's like a little AI note-taking feature because sometimes people say they ask me, "Can I take AI notes?" Okay, it's transcribing now. Mark says, "Thank you, Mark." Okay, good. No, and Lolan, no, Morocco was amazing. It was not scary at all. It was fantastic, and we're going to do a special meeting to talk about Jewish Moroccan magic.
America is much scarier.
Yeah, I did not see one fentanyl zombie the entire time, right? Leah didn't see anything. Nobody bothered her or anything like that. There was never any situation where go cover up, or anyone yelling or even smoking. I mean, I think we saw one person smoke a cigarette once, so it was fantastic. And you could go, they've got snow on the mountains followed by the Sahara Desert and the beach, and you can get there all in one day. It's really unbelievable. So, but it's not Parsha, so let's turn our attention to Parsha. So
yes. Well, this one definitely feels like one of those episodes where it's filler, where they're just taking things from previous episodes to fill in, so kind of remembering, one of those filler episodes because they couldn't really take the time to write a whole script.
It does. It feels so. Many questions. Like, I actually read this, and so I was like, didn't I just read this last week? And then the same thing, Leah.
I had to triple check myself. I went to 3 different. I was like, I swear to God, we just did this one.
You just did.
So So for those out there who haven't read the Parsha, this Parsha is very similar to prior Parshas. Channing is noting. They're very similar. It starts off. I mean, and the reason it's similar is because, once again, they're telling us about how to make all of these things that they have, the construction of the tabernacle, and how they selected the craftsmen, and Bezalel comes in again, and what to do with the curtains, and
it's just slightly different.
It's a slightly different thing. There's some changes which we'll talk about, and some new things which I think Rob Channing is going to talk about the dolphin skins, which is fantastic. But I want to start.
I have something to talk about too that I just found out on the way over here. So
okay,
we'll get to it.
Let's get to it. The first thing that I think it is terrifying to me, which is the second line. On 6 days, work may be done, but on the seventh day, which shall be holy for you, is a day of complete rest for Hashem. Whoever does work on it shall be put to death. Now, that seems a little extreme to me. Thoughts?
The very concept of malacha on Shabbos is never really. There are 39 malachot, 39 categories of work that are forbidden to be done on Shabbat. And in the Torah Shebechtav, anyway, in the written Torah, I'm not talking about the Torah Shebaal Peh, the Talmud, I'm talking about the written Torah, it's never really explicitly stated what types of work. It's just not to work on Shabbos.
Right. That's right. It's in the Talmud where they end up defining that as anything that has to do with making the mishkan, with making the thing. So in the Torah, it doesn't. In the Torah, it doesn't explicitly say.
Not in the Torah Shebechtav.
Yes.
They take a tzad shava, a commonality that because of the proximity to the type of work that they did in the Mishkan, the rabbi make the connection. Well, we're going to take that as the definition of work that cannot be done on Shabbos.
Well, but something that they said that unless that is for saving a life, then it wouldn't matter.
To save a life, you have a chovah to be machal Shabbos or violate Shabbos to save a life.
Yes.
There's no question about that. And
so then here's the question:
if a person is going to drive a doctor, to save a life, then you are doing.
Absolutely, yeah. As they say in the Gemara, "Kuli amal pligi b'lei safek." You're absolutely right. Because that to save a life, you can violate any of the mitzvot, with the exception of avodah shvichas dam and gili riot. Those are only 3. But anyway.
But yeah, so
right.
and that's why I was put on call on Friday nights and Saturday nights, even at a hospital that pretty much very well respected Orthodox, Jewish interpretation. But here's the question then I'm going to put to you. If you can violate that to save a life, and here is the punishment of something is death. You see where I'm going?
Yeah, I see where you're going. If it's to save a life, then what? You're going to put someone to death. I don't know. I mean, and yeah, I see. It's a contradiction. All I can say is, al pi halacha, by Jewish law, for Irish Jews, it's pikuach nefesh, like the man said, pikuach nefesh kol mitzvot, to save a life. And also, if we run out of Guinness, we can go buy Guinness on Shabbos, because that falls under pikuach nefesh. We're going to die without it.
Well, the reason why we don't kill people anymore is because of svara, our moral intuition. It's why we don't stone people to death anymore. It was decided that these things are not. You don't kill people anymore just because they sneezed or because your teenager rolled their eyes at you anymore. You're not going to put them to death, I mean,
look at the Ben Sora Amora, Reb Channing. Look at the Ben Sora Amora, right? The rebellious son. All right? The rebellious son. You kill your son. The Ben Sora Amora, right? You kill your son.
I mean, but you figure out too that there are these rules. They were written down many years ago, and even then after the temple went down, nowadays, like most of the commandments we are not able to fulfill.
No, absolutely. The rabbis get around that by saying Talmud Torah Keneged Kula. By learning about the korbanot and the sacrifices, it's the equivalent of actually doing them. But I actually believe, and many of my Orthodox colleagues, well, we have a, I won't even go there. But anyway, I personally believe that there were moral deterrents. That basically it was to emphasize the importance that Shabbat is oti le'olam, is a sign, an eternal sign between God and the Jewish nation, and that to emphasize the sanctity of Shabbat. I believe that many of these things were just there as to emphasize the importance, not really. It says in the Gemara that a Sanhedrin that stoned a person, I believe that gave a capital punishment once every 70 years, was called a murderous court. So in principle, capital punishment was it's virtually impossible to get capital punishment according to Jewish law, because you need hasra, you need to warn the person directly before they do it. Al pishnei edom, there have to be 2 witnesses. The witnesses have to be, I think, Shomer Shabbos. So you need 2 witnesses. You have to give hasra right before the person does it. And then if the person says, you know what, I don't care, I'm going to do it anyway, then you say, then there's a concept that, well, there's a principle in Judaism, ein adam nitzvah shasaro. A person isn't responsible for their actions during times of extreme duress or stress. So you'd say, well, this person is not non compos mentis. He's not sane. He was seized by a ruach shtus, because who in the hell in their right mind, right after getting hasra warning and having 2 witnesses, are going to do something they're going to get stoned for? So you'd say, well, this person isn't mentally sound. So it says, if he's a shoter, if he's a fool, then he's pater mikol mitzvot anyway. So the bottom.
But then they had, like the 12 people that make, like the judgment, they will, like go like in front of the board, and they actually are the ones that, that it will make that judgment against
exactly. Exactly. To get a convicted of capital punishment or to actually have capital punishment in Jewish law was virtually impossible. It was primarily on the books as a deterrent, not as an actual something to be implemented. There's only one case in the entire Torah. It was the case of Magadef, blasphemy, where the person committed blasphemy before Hesi in front of everyone, and it says it was he was the son of an Israelitish woman, to indicate that he probably, but there's only one case in the entire Torah where it's actually mentioned. So a capital punishment is, you could almost make the argument that, that capital punishment seems to be anathema in actual practice to Judaism, because it was virtually never implemented in practice.
But also you notice that it says right after that, it says you're not to let fire burn throughout all your settlements on Shabbat.
That's a real problem, isn't it?
And yet on the temple period, it says that you're never supposed to let the fire go out.
Go out. Right. So that's my question. That's exactly my question. Oh my gosh. Okay, so it says you shall not kindle fire on any of your dwellings on the Sabbath day. And so I was thinking, what exactly does the word kindle mean?
It doesn't say kindle. It does not say kindle.
It
says you're not to let fire burn.
Right. So
not kindle.
That's how is that? You can't do that. I mean,
the interpretation nowadays is like whenever you have, before the Shabbat start, you should light up all your lights and leave the lights on.
But you still have lighting a candle, and you still have to nurse the candle, especially the Ner Tamid, the one in the
Ner Tamid.
The Ner Tamid, right. You still have to make sure that it has oil. If it doesn't have oil, you're gonna have to top it off, and that would be adding fuel to the fire.
Yes,
right?
but that's kindling.
Yeah,
but it doesn't say kindle. It says to let fire burn.
Exactly. Yeah. So a fire you lit before Shabbat could not be burning on Shabbat according to what it's saying there. Now, what's interesting, the Korayim that did not accept the Torah Shabbat Peh, the Karaim, which was a sort of like a renegade Jewish group, that they did not accept the Torah Shabbat Peh. They had a situation they would not eat cooked food on Shabbat, because like the idea is that, you know, there was not even cooked food would they eat on Shabbat, hot food they would not eat on Shabbat, because they held that you cannot have a fire burning on Shabbat. So the idea is that according like to the Karaim, like in Orthodox households, in my household, I have things hooked up to what they call a Shabbos clock, which automatically turns on and off the light. And all the rabbis will say that that's permissible. And I don't understand how. But if my colleagues say it's permissible, hell, you know, I'm going to go with it. But
or the Shabbos elevator, which just stops at every floor.
Yeah.
You know, it's like,
yeah. The concept there is what they call in concept in Gemara, they call it psik resha. Psik resha means literally, if you cut off a cock's head, it's going to die. In other words, effect must follow cause. So the idea is if you do something on Shabbat, that the effect, you know, that what you're doing is going to cause a certain effect, then the idea is you cannot do that thing. For example, hey, Siri, and Siri goes on, right? That's psik resha. I can't say, hey, Siri, with my phone, because I know that that's going to turn the phone on. That's
My phone lit up when you did that, FYI.
Yeah. So if I have to check the time, I try other things. Hey, Sarah. Hey, Sarai. You know,
Yeah.
shoot, I didn't say, hey, Siri. You know, no, I'm just kidding.
Rabbi McLashton, I just have to tell you that I changed my Siri to have an Irish accent because I just think it's so adorable.
My Siri has an Irish accent too, would you believe? I had an Irish accent until about 30 years ago. But anyway.
but also it's interesting how this section of Parsha, you know, this is the indigenous period. I mean, most of Jewish history is kind of breaking down into like 2 or 3 periods, like the biblical period. But I think the biblical period should also be subdivided into the nomadic agrarian shepherds, because they were all shepherds all the way down like turtles, you know, shepherds. And they were really into the renewable, the shepherd life, but everything was, they were at one with the earth. Everything was renewable. Anything that broke down at the mishkan can be replaced or rebuilt or resewn or fixed with the available materials. It's not when they actually went into temple period did things become much more different and much more harder to repair. And so you have like the indigenous period, then there's the Israelite temple period, and then there was the Jew period, and now the Israel period.
I mean, we have to consider that these people, they used to live under the lunar calendar, you know. I mean, it's completely different to what the calendar that we live on, you know, like nowadays. I mean, they go by the planting, and they use the moon to plant, and they use the moon to harvest, you know. It's everything.
And they worship a goddess along with a god.
Yeah.
And you know what's interesting? There's only one other, to my knowledge, there's only one other group that uses the lunar calendar, and that was the ancient Celts. They also went the Luach, the Jewish calendar. The ancient Celts also used the lunar calendar. So that's just an interesting side note. I don't know. I find all these interesting parallels between my Jewish history and my Celtic ancestry. I find all these really weird parallels.
Well, it's not weird, right? I mean, it's
not. But you know, it's weird.
I mean, we're gonna find those things, and that's it's fantastic. So do we want to go to the Tachash skins now, or I know Chakam has a big.
The one thing I did want to notice with this redoing, because we're getting like a lot of like, you know, remixes, and it kind of, the repetition kind of reminds me or reads a little bit like a William S. Burroughs cut up.
Wow, what a terrific analogy. Wow.
So it's, so we're getting a little bit of that remixing, recutting. It's like,
So-
they found a bunch
That's
of
famous
clap
chanting
on the.
insight. Those are that's a chanting. I coined a new term, a chanting insight.
So for those who don't know who William S. Burroughs is or what a cut up is, William S. Burroughs was a beatnik writer, one of my heroes during the beatnik times, like Allen Ginsberg, who wrote Howl. William S. Burroughs wrote Naked Lunch, is probably his most famous work, which was made into a movie by David Cronenberg. And Peter Weller is in it, actually. And what he had was this technique. He had this idea that language is a virus, which relates to the shirt that I was wearing with Laurie Anderson. But that language was a virus, and that it didn't matter almost how you inserted it. You're going to come out with pretty much the same story. So he would write a story, and as far as my understanding was, that he would actually, on the typewriter, and then he would cut it out line by line, and then he would throw it into a bag or whatever, randomize it, and pull it back out, and then he would here now you're supposed to read it. And so when you read it, initially it's absolutely incoherent, but then all of a sudden, 3/4 of the way into it, you start to get what's going on, and there's a thing, and it could be different, right? And it can also be different every time. So different and the same, I think. You think that would be an accurate explanation?
Yeah, it's
okay.
intertextual. Yeah, and so a lot of this, especially when you start, looking at the layers and how the layers kind of written over different centuries, you get a sense that they're kind of throwing in and mixing up, and they never seems like they're taking stuff out, but they're definitely throwing in clarifications and like, this is like, I don't know, let's just throw that in there.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, for all these rules that were written, who knows, hundreds, thousands of years ago, I mean, they need to be an adjustment to nowadays. And we, as human beings, we need to do an understanding, and we need to pray to have a clarification in our minds to say, hey, what is right and what's wrong? And if there is, like a questioning in our minds, then we need to ask God and say, hey, God, what's going on with this? Or
yeah,
maybe
that's how you get your spara, your moral compass. That's the term for exactly what you're saying. Your spara. Is this really the right thing to do?
Yeah.
That's how you do it. Yeah.
And it's okay to question.
All right. So I really am excited to hear you talk about that. So I think it was Rob Channing who put in Discord today an article about these Tachash skins. And for those who don't know, that it's the 5th line down, and it's a topping that for the mishkan. Okay, it's a cover, and people have interpreted it in the past as dolphin skins, and you're like, what the heck?
Unicorns. I've heard unicorns.
Unicorns, crazy, like, because we don't know what the word is, but Channing did some really cool, deep research and came up with a terrific article today.
Yes, and I believe, Leah, you read it as well, the article. I thought it was very interesting. Well, basically, they just found that there was a Syrianologist who, basically, I mean, it's a very long article talking about the history of this, and they're basically saying, no, it was beaded leather skins.
It was
There
a
was
technique.
a profession. There was a profession of someone who would take little tiny beads, and they would work them into elaborate patterns into leather.
What type of leather?
Animal skin, I mean, whatever, cow,
Animal.
horse, it was mostly cows or, whatever animal they were eating at the time, because as a nomadic tribe, you used all of the animals.
The
Human
way you're
skin.
typing it there, it has nothing to do with dolphins.
Lots and lots of camel bone. camel hair was used as well in that area at the time. I'm surprised that's not mentioned.
Yeah, let me drop that article in into the chat, okay, for everybody.
But before that, they're actually talking about how that men and women alike, everyone of willing mind, they bought brooch and nose rings, signet rings, and then it uses the word kamaz, kumaz, which it usually gets translated to necklace, but upon research, the translation into necklace is conjecture, and that they really don't know what that word means. It could be armband. It could be,
Channing,
they really, yeah.
This is actually what I wanted to talk about on the way over here, that word. Okay, I read 3 different versions of Torah on the way over here, and then before, but on the way over, I was listening to the Chabad, and they called it a chastity belt. And I'm going to put something in the chat, the commentary, and I want you guys to help me out because my Hebrew is not so good.
They thought it was chastity belts, huh? Wow. I mean, it's cool to find out, Jews clearly were wearing nose rings and earrings. And I know that people say, well, it might have been a mark of slavery that was imposed upon them. But my guess is that once you impose that something on someone, like tattooing or something, then it becomes commonplace, and it's a method of adornment. So I just can't.
Well, okay, that's what I put in the chat. So Channing and I both posted the same word, but the Chabad rabbis interpreted this as a golden object placed over a woman's private parts, and explained the term as an acronym of the words, "Here is the place of immorality." Can you clear that up?
What they call makom zanut, as a place of immorality. They translate it as a chastity belt, which probably explains why Irish Jews in Ireland, they had so many locksmiths. Just thinking, but anyway, that's okay.
Right. But really, chastity belts. This is this is new to me in the Jewish culture. Can you
no, that's just one interpretation by one sect of Judaism. It's not necessarily like the thing.
So it's like a moral lock, basically. It's like I don't know if that thing will come with a key or not. Just to put it on or put it off.
I think so. Leah, I think often what happens is in Judaism, because of the interest in the language, and like we were talking about how Maimonides ended up reconstructing everything, right? So there's lots of etymological and gematria correlations made. So people will say, well, this word is actually an acronym, and it means blah, 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 blah. And so that's what this particular person is doing. We don't know whether or not they're retroactively justifying their BS conclusion, or whether they really truly have forward insight, right? Correct insight. It's hard to know.
And that's why I wear this T-shirt, which basically says "Cats against the patriarchy."
Chatulo, yeah, Chatulo negative. Oh, I get it. Chatulo negative. I was wondering, what's cats?
Patriarchy, yeah.
Chatulo negative.
I get
because of these translations, because of translations like that. That is why I wear this T-shirt.
That's fantastic.
But also, just like a few lines down from this, there is a Hapax Lagomana, and for those who don't know what that is, it's words that only appear once in all Torah.
Oh, that's a big deal.
It's not in Torah, it's not in Talmud, and they haven't been able to find words in other Semitic languages that are related to it. So it's a mystery. So people have no clue what it means. And so any translation is false because no one really knows. But it's like Salom in Jacob's ladder. That does not say ladder. They have no clue what it means. And that is here. They have the word. It is tova. I'll put it into there we go. There it is. And the translation is usually spun.
Spun. Okay.
And every
That's what
woman wise of mind with their hands, they tova.
I have an interpretation for that one that you can chew
What's
on.
that?
So they said that that particular word involved a special skill, which was weaving directly from the living goat's back.
That could be.
Which requires special skill.
Well, it requires that every woman who's wise of mind with their hands, they did this. And it was used to make the tapestries that covered the mishkan. But what it is, we don't know. But it often gets translated as spun. So that every woman wise of mind with their hands, they spun the fibers and, so forth and so on.
So I have another question, and maybe I'm going to skip too far ahead, but let's get to 35:20. Now,
what was that? Did you say 35:20?
35:20. The entire assembly of the children of Israel, or so the whole of the community of the Israelites, whatever you want to say, left Moses's presence. Does anybody else find that unbelievably curious, ass backwards kind of a way of saying Moses left them? Like, at what point are you standing there and everybody else leaves, and you define it as them leaving him rather than him leaving them?
The translation
That happened to me after eating kosher Mexican food. Everyone leaves. That's happened to me. I mean, I just.
But it's just an odd phraseology, don't you think? I mean, it's something suspicious about it.
Yeah, my translation is, so the entire community of the children of Israel went out from Moses's presence.
Yeah,
well,
that's what it's saying.
What is went out? Went out where? Is it metaphor? Metaphysical?
Right.
Well, they went out, and then they came, every mind whose mind uplifted him.
Yeah, every man.
First they go out, and then they come back in. And maybe this is, well, when we pray, we take 3 steps forwards and 3 steps back. When davening.
Well, that's right.
We're going out and then coming back in with the uplifted mind.
Ooh, very good.
Are we talking about maybe when the 12 tribes they got split?
No, that hasn't happened yet. It's just I think it's just an odd phrase, which I don't quite understand why it's written in that manner.
I'm sure Rashi, your uncle, has something to say on it. I have to look it up. I'm sure there's got to be a reason, because it is such an odd phraseology. There has to be, I'm sure, Meforshim explanations that would explain why. I'll research that.
Oh, I would love, yeah. Well, let us know. That's an interesting one.
That is.
But
they come out, but then they come in.
Yeah. They're doing a hokey pokey. It's a hokey pokey.
It is very interesting.
So, do we have a little bit, any questions so far? I see in the, okay. Hey guys, I have a question. Yes. Was the menorah handcrafted by Bezalel, or was it miraculously formed when Moshe threw the gold into the fire? I've seen both accounts and would love to know how they can be reconciled. Oh, that is.
I believe it was hammered. All the things were hammered.
I thought Hashem was the one who threw the gold into the fire to show Moshe how it could be built, because he couldn't like fathom how it could be done in one piece.
All right. Wait, where's the menorah? Let's talk about, okay, the menorah of illumination. Oh, that's a good question. I'm not sure.
The Eglah Zahav, it says, was formed that way. They just threw it in and it miraculously came out formed.
Whereas I've read other midrash where it's actually talking about it is where they basically, it was a symbol of Asherah.
Yeah.
The bride of heaven.
Okay, so the person who's asking the question, Esteban, is they're curious about 37:17, and they are talking about Bezalel, and it says he made the menorah of pure gold, hammered out did he make the menorah. Its base was, and its shaft, its cups, its knobs, and its flowers were from it. 6 branches emerged from its sides. 3 branches of the menorah, and we all know that there's a fight about whether or not they're straight or curved. Okay, 3 branches of the menorah from the side, and 3 branches of the menorah from its second side. 3 cups engraved like almonds on one branch, a knob and a flower. 3 cups engraved like almonds, a knob and a flower on the next branch. So for the 6 branches that emerged from the menorah. And the menorah were 4 cups, and on the menorah were 4 cups engraved like almonds, its knobs and blossoms. A knob was under 2 of the branches from it. A knob was under 2 of the branches from it. A knob was under 2 of the branches from it. For the 6 branches emerging from it. So, their knobs and branches were all of it a single hammered piece. Okay, single hammered piece of pure gold. He made its lamps 7 and its tongs and spoons of pure gold. So I don't think it was throwing into the fire this time.
Yeah, no, hammered work is work that is easily rebuildable. It is part of the, if you're going to be sustainable, because they were sustainable as a nomadic tribe, hammered metal work is easy to repair and easy to build. But the menorah itself, you know, many of people think it is from the tree or the Asherah tree of a remnant of a goddess worshipping past of the Israelites, and that much like the Easter egg is today actually a pagan symbol from previous times.
Yeah.
Amazingly so, if we look at the menorah has 6 3 on one side, 3 on the other one, and 1 in the middle.
Yeah.
6 days, the God actually created the whole universe. And on one day in the middle, we rest to observe him. And that is the meaning of the whole creation itself.
That's probably one of many of the meanings. We've got a lot. There's a lot of 7s. There's a lot of mysticism around 7.
A lot of 7s.
Yeah.
One quick note on Bezalel. So he's this like super master craftsman, right? He can do anything. He is the son of Uri, son of Hur. Hur is the son of Miriam.
Oh,
so he's got some good lineage.
Yeah, he's a prophetess's grandson, or and the sister of Noah. So this is like the grandson, Noah's grandson, or grand nephew.
That's Noah's wow. Right.
But yes, also interestingly, it shortly thereafter it talks about how he made the basin of the kior, the basin of bronze, and it's made it with the mirrors of the woman's working force that was doing the work. So it's in 38:8 is talking about
38:8.
yeah, he's talking about he made the kior, the basin of bronze, its pedestal of bronze, with the mirrors of the woman's working force that was doing the work at the entrance of the Ohel Moed.
He made the laver of copper and his base of copper from the mirrors of legions. Okay, so Rashi, I think there's a commentary here. The laver was very large basin in the tabernacle courtyard from which Kohanim were required to wash their hands and feet before performing the service. It was made entirely of copper mirrors. So yeah, all right. So
but the mirrors, but in the Hebrew, the more direct translation would be with the mirrors of the woman's, plural, working force that was doing the work at the entrance of the Ohel Moed.
It continues. The mirrors used by women in those days were
but it doesn't say those days.
I know, but I'm telling you what their commentary is. Their commentary is that the women it was made entirely of copper mirrors, and the mirrors by women in those days were brightly polished sheets of copper. When the call went out for contributions, the women came with their copper mirrors and piled them up at the tent of meeting, which was given until the erection of the tabernacle, was the name given to Moses' tent. Okay, so
yeah, but I just wanted to point out the fact that women were doing temple work.
Yes, that is.
So this is it gets ignored, but at this point, before the temple practice, before the actual the temple Judaism in Jerusalem, when it was still the mishkan, portable holiness, the women were doing the work too.
I will also just like to add that by the Middle Ages, which of course is very, very late in comparison, copper mirrors, there is a whole Kabbalist writings about using different mirrors made out of different substances for scrying on different days. Okay, on different days. So copper being one mirror, and you use that on a certain day for scrying, and use a different mirror made out of a different substance on Thursday or whatever, on one of the different days. And I can't remember off the top of my head, but just to know, really interesting just to see the copper mirror back again, or at least for me.
So you have to dafka use that specific substance to, like, for example, nechoshet is copper, I believe, or maybe nechoshet copper. So you'd have to use nechoshet to scry on that day.
Yeah. Yes.
And if you didn't have nechoshet, you're out. Basically, you can't scry on that day.
Yeah.
That's a scrying shame,
I love your jokes. I just love them.
They're the best.
Oh, wait a minute. Who here is into dramatics and scries their mirror with mirror on the wall? Who's the fairest of them all? Well, firstly, that's a misquote. It's magic mirror on the wall. All right. We all say it, but that's an example of the Mandela effect. We all say mirror, but it's not. If you go in there, it's magic mirror on the wall. Who is the fairest of them all? And I definitely do scrying with mirrors, and it's a long tradition. Even Joseph did it with his cup. Perhaps either the water in the cup or the shininess of the cup itself. I will just point out. Should I point out, Leah? You think about the acacia wood? What do you guys think? I mean, I don't want to use up time.
Ari has something to say. Let's
Okay. Yeah.
see what that's about.
Yeah.
Hey, glad to see you guys back safely, by the way.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So this is kind of tangential, but I was looking into the Midrash about Bezalel, and I hadn't found it yet, but the verse I was looking for, but it says the temple was similarly constructed by means of these three attributes, as it is said. And this is Midrash. What's the name of it? Anyways, I'll put it in the chat. But it says he was the son of a widow of the tribe of Naphtali, and his father was a man of Tyre. And now, what got me thinking was that in Freemasonry, right? Hiram Abiff, who is the legendary builder of the Temple of Solomon, is from Tyre. He's Hiram of Tyre. And so it made me just connect the dots on what's the connection between, the Torah and this whole myth about the building of the temple, right? Anyways, it kind of went on a side road. I don't know why I thought to, but the thing being also, I guess, what is the connection between Tyre and Israel, right? And with Tyre, I believe being Lebanon, correct? So you've got the cedars of Lebanon, right? And now the whole connection between, I mean, even in modern day with, all the geopolitical events with Israel and Lebanon and so forth. It's just kind of an interesting
Parallel, synchronicity.
Yeah, that's all. That's it.
So, Channing, do you want to talk about the cherubim again?
Yeah, no, I was just about to bring that up.
Good.
Because, we have the cherubim, which the Shockton Everett Fox Bible translates as winged sphinxes. And if you actually look at cherubim, it is actually closely related to the Assyrian cherubim, which means winged calf or bull, and which was used as the Assyrians worshipped, who are the neighbors here, and they worshipped golden calves with wings. And then when you actually, several hundred years later, when Ezekiel comes about, he talks about them as they had human hands below their wings, and then 4 of them had their faces and their wings and their 4 sides. They had 4 faces, and each of them had 4 wings. The legs were fused into a single rigid leg, and the feet of each were like a single of a calf's hooves, and their sparkle was just like the luster of burnished bronze. They had multiple faces of like animals around, goats and human, and they were this, I mean, talk about tripping on acacia wood. This is like some serious DMT tripping here.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
And that's not the same as the cherubim who are on the ark.
They're definitely described very differently.
And they're not like holding up chariots or any of, Ezekiel is totally into the Kabbalah, and it's you can totally read that mystically and not as, yeah, exactly. That is a cherubim, or more.
Yeah, thank you for the image.
You're taking that from Yechezkel, right, Reb Channing? The book of Ezekiel? The story of the chariot with the 4 faces?
Yeah.
Right. Shechina in the sky with diamonds. Yeah.
Exactly. But as I think we talked last week, where in the northern kingdoms that were writing a bit about the golden calf, it wasn't a big deal. They did that up there. It was not a big thing. It was only later when they added additions that it became idolatrous. Because in the north, they were closer to the Assyrians and therefore closer and more exposed to worshiping golden calves, which was a foreign practice in the south, in Jerusalem, during the temple period.
Why would Hashem request that a golden image of something that resembles an Assyrian god or mythological creature on his like ornamentation? That's kind of weird, right? Like, why? I mean, that's almost like asking for it.
Well,
right?
When they were asking, when they asked Aaron to build the calf, they asked him, "Make us Hashem."
Make us a Hashem.
Yeah, make us Hashem.
Yeah, but I mean, whenever God said, "Hey, I have no face, I have nothing. I mean, I am not in any way, shape, or form being able to be, described. There is no way that you can describe him. There
Absolutely.
is no, you will not make no idols or anything that will reassemble him or it, because we don't know if it's him or her, or it can be both.
It's neither, right? It's both neither, because Hashem is believable and self, no limit, without end. But to get back to Chacham Leah's question, it seems like Hashem is telling us to do something that is in violation of the Aseret HaDibrot, I mean, a central precept. It seems like, it's really it's a hard one. That's an interesting question that Chacham Leah brought up.
God knew our shortcomings and our need to have something, to have like a physical thing that the human being. Nowadays, we need something. We need things that say, hey, it's like I can see this, and
we need something to remind us of God. You're saying we need a physical, something physical, tangible to remind us of the infinite grandeur of Hashem.
Well, that's what it's
something like
that's what we
something
have.
like
That's what we have Selena Gomez for, isn't it?
Yeah, or menorah, or mezuzah,
or shmini, right?
Okay.
Or a Star of David, or
it's like, hey, we wear that. It's like that is like significance to us is like our ID. It will be
okay.
But then, whenever Moses came back and he seen this, that actually they built a golden calf. I mean, he got really pissed.
Yeah.
And he said,
that we were discussing this, what you're bringing out, we were discussing, because in all of the Meforshim, not any of the Chazal, none of the sages actually come out and say that it was avodah zarah, that it was idolatry. None of them. There's not even a Manda Omar, one opinion that says it was idolatry, even though they pointed at it and said, "This is our God." It's always been a question of mine. But anyway, I just don't understand how not one commentator could have said, "Hey, this." They all say that it was not avodah zarah, that it was not idolatry, even though they pointed at it, and said zot. They pointed to this, and there's not even one opinion that says that it was idolatry.
no?
it's very fascinating. Well, we only have about 5 minutes left, and I kind of want to get to a little kind of close with a little bit of preview, a little plug. I would say for the Jewish Magic Festival, which is gonna be in October, and Rev Channing is gonna be talking there, and we have a very special guest also coming, Rabbi Jill Hammer, who's very interesting, and she started Channing knows more than I do about it, but she started the Kohenet, the priestess group, which is pretty big right now, and so we're gonna have a lot of interesting and fantastic speakers. So it's going to be 2 days, October 12th and 13th. So the reason I want to bring it up is because during the Jewish Magic Festival, we're going to do some deep dives into specific types of magic. I'm specifically talking about Psalmic magic, and I'm going to teach you the history of Psalmic magic and what the Psalms have been used for. And we're going to talk about so maybe things like this. Yeah, we'll talk about those things in depth. Now, I do want to share something from my trip, our trip to Morocco that we are gonna, that Hakam Leah and I acquired while we were there. It's something very special. So I'm gonna try to share my screen and show you. Well, I'll tell you the story. We were led to a Casbah, and in the Casbah there is a synagogue from 1,000 years ago. Okay, so it was amazing, and we walked around the corner from the synagogue, and at the synagogue at a table were 1,000-year-old set of shofars, 4 shofars that were just amazing. Now, then we walked around another corner, and our guide already was very well aware that I was interested in Jewish history and in Jewish anything. So he would find like the best of the best of people who were, had wares or maybe antiquity, antiques and things like that. And we stumbled upon this very interesting door. And this is the type of stuff I'm going to talk about. I'm also going to do a special thing for the members, everybody, on Moroccan Jewish magic. Okay, we stumbled on this very neat thing. Oh, I can share photos through this way. Maybe I'll just share my screen. Share screen. Okay. Did that work? No. No, didn't. Okay, share screen again. Start broadcast. Okay. All right. Now you should see it. We stumbled upon this.
Oh, wow.
All right. And so I want to show you a little bit about this. Okay. I said, what is this? And they said, well, it's a door. And you can see at the top, there's a hinge, a post, right, that would go into. So it is a door, makes sense. And I said, oh my gosh, I think this might be the door to an ark. Now they told me that this came from a different Casbah, okay? And so it was much larger. You can see they have other little doors like this, but this was, look at the size of this thing, okay? Much bigger. So they insisted, they said, no, this is very typical of Berber Jewish homes in the Casbah, had very tiny doors, and this is probably just a door to a Jewish home or inside a Jewish home. And then they proceeded to tell me, look, the inlay here is made out of camel bone, which was fantastic and very exciting and really neat. And then they turned around and they said, and by the way, the wood here is made out of acacia. All right. It's acacia wood once again. So I was pretty.
We kind of like screamed at each other, like, ah!
Wow.
But did you get it?
But pardon?
Did you buy it and have it shipped to you?
I did. Now
you did.
I did. I absolutely did. I want to point out something very interesting about the hands. I mean, actually, maybe someone else can look at those hands for me.
Yes.
And maybe they can tell me what is wrong or right or unusual about them.
They are on the opposite side, and they have an eye in the center of the hand. It looks like it.
I was
That's
gonna say too, they're like this instead of being together.
that is absolutely right. Now I'm gonna stop sharing my screen. Okay, that is absolutely right. They're like this, right?
But the eyes on the hands like this.
But the eyes are on the hands, right? So when we do hamsa, always you point your palm. Your hand is your palm,
Yes.
and it's here, right? Hamsa. Okay. To do this, of course, is you're going to be seeing the eye here. Okay, so it could be this, right? It could be you crisscross.
Yeah.
So I said, that's what I thought it was, because it's always on the palmar side. So it has to be this. So I turned to the guide and I said, listen, they're crossing. Do you do that in Berber? Is that a gestural magic I've never seen before? And they said, no. Indeed, you are looking at the palms. And I said, well, I don't understand. And they said, and there were both Arab and Berber, and they said when they impetrate God, okay, for any, if they're thanking God or if they are impetrating God, asking God for something, particularly for justice, okay, they themselves are looking at their own hands. So they make this motion. And so now, of course, I'm the one who's seeing my palms. And of course, now the thumbs are in the correct position, right? It's not like that. I mean, this is the same. So that what we're looking at is a combination of Jewish and Berber and sort of Arabic tradition on the door. This door has all those components.
Could that be a possibility that with the hands he will actually cover his eyes? Whenever
oh yeah, like this.
Like when you light the Shabbat candles.
Yeah, absolutely.
Jeremy, there was also the doorway tradition at the mosque where they had the door handles. They had handles for men and then handles for women, and it was you knock 3 times and then make a wish and say inshallah, God willing, and that's there's a lot of threshold magic that is just a way of transitioning from that liminal space.
That's right.
It's really it's universal.
Right. So in the Jewish tradition, what Chacham Leah is talking about is in the Jewish tradition, the doorway is a liminal space. This is why we have our mezuzah there, because it's a transitional space in which things can happen. And this is why the amulet bowls were also found in the doorways as demon traps upside down. So if you have a magical space, a liminal space, it makes perfect sense, right, to do your magic there. And that was one of the wonderful things, right? So they got a door knocker. It's different for men and women so that the person inside can hear, oh, the person on the outside is a woman. I need to make sure that I'm covered up and, like this or whatever it is. They know the person on the outside is a man. Very cool. But this whole idea of knocking 3 times and just saying, they instructed us literally, sit over here for a minute. Think of what your wish is and think about it. So they're talking about kavanah, right? And then you go to the liminal space, you knock 3 times and you say, and God willing, and you're throwing it into the mosque, or, you're throwing your wish into the mosque. So
there's also I believe there's the myth of the oracles and the Roman oracle gods or oracle woman, and they would have one of their rites or rituals included having eyes on the outsides of their palms and covering their eyes, because then this is normally, but this is now channeling, and you're now looking at the face of the whatever god the oracles were praying to. So it was a way of liminal space of, now I'm talking to you, but now I'm going into now you're speaking to the god, because you're looking at the eyes on the backs of the hands.
Oh, that's like out of Pan's Labyrinth.
Yeah, oh yeah. I think these things are cross-cultural in a lot
archetypes.
of these things.
Yeah.
They're very much
Door could be one of the flaps that could be whenever they used to hold the scrolls in, like the praying scrolls.
I'm sorry, say again.
Whenever you go like a synagogue, right?
Yeah.
You actually will store the scrolls, inside of an area.
Yes, initially I thought it was an ark. That's what I thought it was, a door to an ark. But they said no. They said this is a door for a person. And I said, "Are you sure?" And they're like, "No, we've seen this 1,000 times." So we did visit a phenomenal synagogue in Fez, which is called City of the Jews, and the Melah, which is the Jewish quarter, which means salt, for lots of reasons. We're going to talk about this. One of the guides said, "Listen, you can tell the Jewish buildings because the Jewish buildings all have balconies." And then he said, and so I smiled because I know why they have balconies. And then he said, on Shabbat, they're not really allowed to, call or whatever. So the Jewish women would sit outside, and this is how they would talk to each other. This is why they have balconies. And I said, no, the Jewish women might talk to each other on the balconies, but this is not why they have balconies. Anybody who has been to Israel and seen an apartment building knows why every person there has a balcony. Every person there has a balcony because they need to celebrate Sukkot. They've got to be able to erect a sukkah. And so I told them, and they were like very appreciative of that knowledge. They were like, "Oh, the sukkah, oh, okay." So they said, and they talk to each other. I said, "Yeah, that's probably true." So very neat. It was really neat. So with 6:06, ladies and gentlemen, I think we're gonna call it a night. What do you think? A night.
All right. Thanks, everyone. This was a fun Parsha, like all of them.
Just don't call me late to dinner.
Well, Lila Tov to everyone. And thank you so much for coming, and come to the Jewish Magic Festival, and come to Moroccan Jewish Magic, and we're gonna teach a lot of cool stuff. So
nice to meet you all.
And thank you all. Thank you everybody for coming. Bless you all.
Bye-bye.
Baruch Hashem.
Baruch Hashem.
Baruch Hashem.